Magic 108, Earl the Pearl, with one of my favorite announcers, businessman, St. Louis, and just an all-around great guy that I used to listen to when I was younger. But I'm probably older than him. Bruce Nichols, Don Cody. Welcome.
Thank you, Earl. It's great to be with you and great to be on your new station. Congratulations on your endeavors. I listened to your station through Randy O.J. let me be aware of it, and I'm impressed with the quality sound and the great music that you're playing each and every day. And it's just amazing how you brought back to life Majic 108 FM.
I'm humbled that you put it that way. Mr. Don Cody is the CEO of Moses Media in Florida. Very successful enterprise, getting music played on the air, nationwide, worldwide. Just happy to have you here. And he began his musical journey, his entertainment journey in St. Louis, Missouri at KATZ Music 16. I had to say that because I emulated that coming up and admired you guys. Tell us about that experience, Don.
Well, St. Louis is my hometown. It's a great city, even though I reside here in Florida. I've been in Florida for 20 years. My roots are in St. Louis. I attended Sodan High School. I worked at KATZ back in the day when they were located in the arcade building downtown, 8th and Olive, and this is going way back in the mid to late 70s when I was there. And from the arcade building, 8th and Olive downtown, we moved over to Tucker and Olive, which is 12th and Olive, the Missouri State Bank building. Then we moved over to the Bolivar, right across from Bi-State Bus Station, with Magic 108, your new station, Magic 108. That's when Magic was Magic. That's one of the reasons why you have Magic 108 now. Then we moved over to Corporate Square in Creve Coeur. But St. Louis is a great city. I attended Sodan High, went to Mitchell, Enright Middle School, lived in all parts of St. Louis, the Central West End, off of Lindale, not too far from Forest Park, on the south side, the north side, on Penrose, not too far from Natural Bridge. Attended a lot of the functions in St. Louis, the Kiel Auditorium, the Checker Dome, Arena. I'm telling my age, going way back. And kicking it in Forest Park, going out of U City, Laclede Landing, and even crossing the bridge, going over to East St. Louis with some of the clubs back in the day with Jockenstein, the Royal Empire, Coleman Plaza, the Blue Swan, Garrett's Lounge, the Regal Room. You know, I love St. Louis, and I work with so many pioneers and legendary DJs in St. Louis. Jockenstein, Jim Gates, Bernie Hayes, Doug Eason, Gary Starr, Lee Michaels, Calvin Glenn, a.k.a. Mike Love, Sweet Charlie, Terry Houston, Edie B., Earl the Pearl, yourself, and many, many legendary personalities. And then the ones over at Magic, like Eric Magic Man Michaels, Doc Winter, Chuck Atkins, Troy Johnson, Mark Clark, Tony Scott, Deneen Busby. A lot of legendary people lived and worked in St. Louis and migrated throughout the whole country and made a big name for themselves.
True. Oh, man, you have an astounding memory. Unless you're reading that off, that was astounding. How old are you now?
This is from my heart. I'll be 57 in a month.
Oh,
57 in a month. But I started when I was 15 years old. So I've been in the business for a little bit over 40 years. Randy O.J. and I, we were the youngest DJs or personalities. Actually, before we became DJs and personalities, we were gophers. You know, there's no shame to my game. A gopher. We worked at the station with one of the DJs needed something to eat. We would go out and get him something to eat. If one of the DJs needed some cigarettes, we would go out and get them some cigarettes. So they needed a newspaper. This is before USA Today. This is when they had the Globe Dispatch. I mean, the Globe and the Post Dispatch.
Mm-hmm.
We would do our thing. And then we got to the point where we were no longer gophers. we had our own gophers. We went from being a gopher to having our own gopher. We had the respect and the and the appeal of the fans and the listeners, and we moved from there.
You know, you've talked about so much. I don't know where to begin, but I'm going to start with one of my mentors, Bernie Hayes, Jim Gates, Bernie Hayes. Those are legends in St. Louis, and they're still here, and they're still producing. And I'd like for you to speak on those two legends.
Well, Bernie Hayes, I have the utmost respect for Bernie Hayes. Bernie is one of the very few guys in the business that's celebrating 50 years in broadcasting.
Wow.
And just to elaborate about Bernie is like Transformers. There is more than what meets the eye. Bernie is a newspaper man. He writes for the St. Louis American. Bernie is a teacher. He taught at UMSL. Bernie is a TV personality. He has a show on Channel 24. Bernie is a former PD, program director, a former jock, former talk show host. Bernie is an MC. Bernie even used to record records. His wife, Yubi, is a recording artist. So Bernie is Transformers. Bernie is the ultimate in the business, 50 years going strong. I learned a whole lot from Bernie Hayes. And he's not a puker. He's not a rhymer. He's a puker in the business, you know, when you got these jocks and, you know, how you doing?
Right.
That's a puker.
Right.
A rhymer, Bernie doesn't try to rhyme. Now, Jock is famous for rhyming.
That's right.
Jock is, he's a great rhymer, but Bernie is a broadcaster. He doesn't really have a deep voice, but he has a way of making you feel warm listening to him.
Yes.
Bernie is a true professional. Now, Jim Gates, Jim and Bernie used to have a TV show back in the day on Channel 30 when Channel 30 was on Cold Street and Tucker or 12th. They had a dance show similar to Soul Train or American Bandstand, and Jim and Bernie were hosting co-hosts, which I thought was ironic because you have two different personalities.
Right. They're different.
Gentleman Jim Gates, the brown-eyed Scorpio, he former general manager of a radio station in East St. Louis. He also was the GM of KTZ and Z100 in St. Louis. PD, GM, DJ, great announcer, great DJ, great live broadcasting announcer. Jim is very tall, got the brown eyes.
Dapper.
Great with production as far as producing commercials, nice tone. Jim did a lot of commercials. Now, very few people know that Jim branched out from St. Louis for a little while, and he actually worked in Detroit.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he did. He worked in Detroit. He learned a lot from Berry Gordy and all the big artists that was with Motown. He got a lot of showmanship from Detroit and brought it back to St. Louis. Another thing that very few people know about Jim Gates was when Sylvia Robinson and Joey had the record label Sugar Hill Records.
Right.
Jim Gates was the one who broke Rapper's Delight. He was the first major radio station in the whole country to play that record. And when he played it, at that time, that record was 15 minutes long. He broke Rapper's Delight on WESL in East St. Louis.
Do you know, I read that in a book called by Don Chalmers, and I forgot the name of the book, but it chronicles hip-hop in its beginning, and it states exactly what you said, that Jim Gates broke that record, the first hip-hop record in America, at WESL.
Right.
Amazing.
And another thing I give Jim credit for, which was something that's totally unique in the broadcast industry, a lot of these shifts, and you're a DJ yourself, you know, an average DJ shift is 4 hours.
4 hours.
You may get 5 hours or 6 hours. But at ESL back in the day, Jim would have 2 and 3 hour shifts. And his mentality with that was, okay, you can work 2 hours or 3 hours on the radio, and you spend the rest of the time out in the field working at these clubs, doing discos or DJing, whatever, because he wanted the DJs to burn a candle on both ends of the stick. He wants you to be on the radio, pumping things up live so the listeners can hear, but at the same time, in these clubs and different places, I don't care if it's a car wash, a parade, whatever, so the word can get out about WESL.
Right.
So Jim was a master at that.
He was the master of that, and it's remarkable that you mentioned that in the framework that you did, because that was an indirect competition to Magic 108. They had the people. Magic 108 had the ratings, but the hearts and minds were with WESL in a lot of ways regarding Jim Gates and Dr. Jockenstein. Do you agree with that?
I do, and the difference was back then when Magic, even though it was a big FM station, you could hear Magic all over St. Louis, East St. Louis, and all the way out in Wentzville and other places. The difference, ESL was an AM station based in East St. Louis. That's where the WESL, East St. Louis, came from. But the difference in the personalities on Magic, they were what we call card readers. They'll read what's on the card. Hi, the weather is great, and the cream corn, Kinlock, it's a good day. But on ESL, it was more personality radio. They would say hi to so-and-so at the beauty shops, hi to so-and-so at the barber shop. They'll put people on the air saying, okay, what do you want to hear? I'm going to get that on for you. They didn't do that at Magic. It was more like, we're going to just stick to the basics, but on ESL was more personality radio. Now, later on throughout the years, then Magic 108 got into more personality. This was during the time of Tony Scott, Mark Clark, Chaz Saunders, Eric Magic Man Michaels, Kevy Kev, Doc Winter, and that was pretty much the lineup like it was traditionally. And Kevin Woodson, who grew up in St. Louis on St. Louis Avenue, not too far from Sarah Lee, the shrimp and fish place.
For sure.
But
grew up there eating there.
ESL was so much of the personality radio, and at the time I was working at KATZ, and we had to bring Jockenstein on board because Jock was the master personality of all.
Right.
And I worked with Jock, Jim, Bernie, Lou Father Times, The Godfather, Terry Houston, and many other personalities. And each one of them had their own personality and their own strengths and weaknesses. But Jock, everybody loved Jock.
Everybody loved Jock. We did. Even if we worked against him, we loved him because we saw him out in the street and he was like family.
Right. And not only was he out in the street, he used to wear his white glasses, and he was always pimped out, dressed really, really nice, and he had a nice car, and he kept an entourage around him because people would gravitate to Jock because they just liked him so much.
And you're absolutely right, man. You are a walking history book regarding the Magic history, and I just want to take a quick break, and I want to come back, and I want to talk about some of the entertainers that were influential in the time that Bruce Nichols. And one other thing I want to talk about is you becoming a first-class engineer at such a young age. I think a lot of listeners that are younger and have children or younger men could benefit from that story of how you dedicated yourself to become a first-class engineer of a major market radio station in the United States of America as a teenager. I want to hear about that. We're going to come right back with Mr. Don Cody of Moses Media, a.k.a. Bruce Nichols, right after this. Magic 108, Earl the Pearl with Mr. Moses Media himself, Don Cody, a.k.a. Bruce Nichols. And we're back, and this man is amazing in how he has done his businesses, and I want to talk a little bit about that, but one of the most remarkable things about Mr. Don Cody is that he became a first-class engineer in a major market radio station as a teenager. I don't think that's ever been done to this day. And I'd like for you to give some stories on how that was done and possibly inspire some of our younger people who want to be entertainers and radio announcers and rappers. Don, help them out.
Wow, man, you're bringing back memories. I don't mind sharing this story with you and your listeners because it's very dear to me. Is because how I got started. First of all, at that time, I was 15 years old. I didn't know what I was going to do in life. I wasn't really giving it any thought at the time. But, however, my sister, who was like 23, 24, she started dating one of the DJs of KATZ in St. Louis by the name of Lee Michaels.
My hero.
And this was around 1974. At that time, the Isley Brothers was real big. Barry White was real big. Parliament Funkadelic was really getting started. The Ohio Players were real big.
Wow.
And she started dating Lee, and he started coming over to the house, and he would scoop me up and take me down to the radio station. And once I got a look at the equipment at the radio station and see how everything was, I was hooked. I was really amazed because I'd never been into a radio station before in my life. I started meeting the personalities that I would hear on the radio, and I had free reign of the radio station because Lee was a big-time DJ at the station. He got you started. He got Randy O.J. started.
You're right.
He's in the Hall of Fame, the St. Louis Hall of Fame to this day. All the personalities that worked in St. Louis within the last 4 decades, they know him, they respect him. And at that time, he was in his mid to late 20s, and I was pretty much like 10 years younger than he was. So I was a little whippersnapper, a freshman in high school and soda in high school. Here I am, market size number 18, hot radio station, and it was no Majic 108. It was no KKS at that time. KATZ in St. Louis was the number one radio station. So after my sister and Lee dated for about 2 years, within that time, after being at the station so long, I wanted to be on the radio, but they wouldn't let me on the radio because of 2 reasons. One, I was too young. I wasn't even old enough to get a check. I wasn't even 16. I wasn't even 18. And then I had no experience. So they said the best thing you need to do is get your job at another radio station. So I got a job at KCFV, FM 89.5 in Florissant Valley Community College. And during that time while I was working on the air there part-time, just, on the weekends and doing the week 2-3 hour shifts, I went to school and started learning how to get the first-class license. It's a big story between the first-class license and the third-class license. The third class is enough to get on the air, but the first class, you can be an engineer. And for your listeners, the engineer is the person who run the controls at the board while across the window the DJ will speak. You will open up the mic for him, play the records and everything. You'll do all the engineering while he just speak. So since I couldn't crack the mic and be on the air, my idea was just let me operate the controls. let me push some buttons. Let me do something. So that was my thing. And at that time, it was unheard of for somebody 15 or 16 years old to go to Kansas City, take the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission's test, and pass it, in which I did. And once I got my license, the people at KATZ, they had much more respect for me because I was a young guy, and I got this huge license where some people 35 or 40 years old couldn't even get.
Right.
But I was determined to make that happen, and nothing was standing in my way because I had the passion and the drive to succeed, and nobody or nothing was going to stand in my way. As soon as I got that license, it was almost, instead of you getting a driver's license, you had like a chauffeur's license.
Right.
Instead of you having an apartment, you had a house with a pool in it.
And
so
a
they looked at me
jacuzzi,
from a
too.
different light.
Mm-hmm.
They would have looked at me in a different light if I was 25, but for me to be 16, it was more like the respect is there.
Absolutely. Tell me, what was the study? Let me interrupt you and ask you the study ethic. I mean, what were you raised to be studious, or did it just come natural? Or what happened? How did that happen?
The study effort was intense. It was that test is not a vigorous test. I mean, it was not something that an average person could pass. It was almost like forget about being an emergency room doctor. You was trying to become a surgeon. Mm-hmm. I studied and studied. I studied for so damn high with my classes, and I studied to pass this test. And some of the questions that was on the test was you had to read schematics. A schematic is if you look at the back of a TV diagram, you got to know how with the wattage, the voltage, and then you have to know about resistors, capacitors. It was a real complex test, and I studied everything on it. It took a lot out of me to pass that test, but I studied so much, and I achieved it. And once I achieved the license, the next step for me was to join the union, which is the IBEW Local 4, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers Union. Right. I could have got a job at Channel 4, could have got a job at Channel 30, Channel 2, Channel 5, or any other stations, because when you get one of those kind of licenses in the broadcast and TV fields, pretty much you got a license to steal. So I was on my way. They actually called it back then, not a first-class license, they called it a first-class ticket because you were on your way.
Right. It was amazing. We were all so amazed and so proud of you, contemporaries at your age, and I'm just 1 or 2 years older, but still we were amazed and proud of you to accomplish something that significant.
Well, it was do or die for me because everywhere I went, everybody was telling me that I couldn't get a job because the market was St. Louis was so big, it's still big, and I didn't have any experience, so I did a backdoor route, and it was really impossible. I think the people told me to try that. If you can't get on the air, you could try engineering thing, but you need a license first. And I thought they probably thought I would never get it, but I fooled them. I actually got it,
Sure
and once
did.
I got it, I helped people under me to get their license as well.
Man, it was amazing, remarkable, and and you transcended, went on and founded Moses Media, and that's another tremendous story.
Right. After working and managing radio stations for almost 2.5 decades, I left St. Louis, went to Charlotte, North Carolina, left Charlotte, went to Little Rock, went to Tampa, went to Norfolk, and managed stations in other parts of the country. I was 42 years old, and I decided to not continue in radio because I didn't want to be 50 cracking the mic. I was trying to think of what I could do for the next 20 years. That's the key to being successful. You always have to think for the future. And this is very important. Even Barack Obama, who's going to leave office pretty soon, people had never thought a black man would be president of the United States.
Correct.
And he was president before he was 50. So you always have to think, and he wasn't even a full-term senator. He was half-term senator when he decided to run. After managing stations in different parts of the country for almost 2.5 decades, I knew I got tired of packing my family and my belongings in U-Haul trucks going up and down the highway. At some point, this was going to be too much. And people don't know that. People think because you're a DJ on the radio, you're making a whole lot of money. Yeah, you do, but in some cases you don't. And then in other cases, after a period of time, it's going to come to an end. Even some of these big time actors and TV anchors, I don't see Julius Hunter on TV anymore. I don't
No.
see Steve Schiff on TV anymore. I see Bessie Bruce whenever I come to St. Louis. I'm happy to see Bessie Bruce.
Right.
But at one time, she was an anchor person. Nothing against Bessie if she's listening right now. But they got Bessie out on the street like she was a street reporter. She did that 30 years ago. I didn't want to do that.
Right.
So I decided to open up my own company. I took a risk. I spent about $80,000 that I have saved up over the years.
Wow.
And I opened up my own company. And here I am 15 years later. You know, I'm good to go.
Right,
Nobody
right.
can tell me what to do.
That's right.
I'm my own boss. I have no bankers, no partners, no investors. I do my own thing.
And see, that's what we want to get to here at Magic108FM.com for our listeners, to inspire their children and others to own and operate their own enterprise. He just gave you the keys of how to do it in this brief discussion. We've got to take a break, come right back, and we want to hear the future of Moses Media and Don Cody. Earl of Pearl, Magic 108 with Don Cody. We'll be right back. Magic 108, Earl of Pearl with Don Cody from Moses Media, a.k.a. Bruce Nichols. And he's giving us a roadmap for our children to build something extraordinary. And he went from KATZ as a first-class engineer into Moses Media. He was on the air, too, at Magic 108, and that's the reason why he's here. This is Frequency was his home, and this is the reason why he's here today, because he helped build Magic 108 because of his effort and what he did. And so I just want to hear the future of Don Cody and Moses Media. Where do we go from here?
Well, I'm 15 years into the company now, and I have given thought about the future a couple years ago, and my next step is to go into conventions, sort of similar to Jack the Rapper. Basically, what my company, what we do is we promote records. We help get records played on radio stations across the country. Not only there in St. Louis or Kansas City or Chicago, we work L.A., New York, Miami, Seattle, Detroit, Dallas, all major cities, and independent cities like Macon, Champaign, Illinois, etc. We've been doing this for 15 years, getting records played and doing massive email campaigns for major independent labels. I mean, we've done campaigns for Beyonce, Jay-Z, Lil Wayne, T-Pain, Future, 50 Cent. I mean, you name it. If you go to our website, MosesMediaInc.com, you'll see several of them. But my next step, instead of just being complacent and just saying, okay, I'm fine, I can continue making money, continue servicing my clients, I have given thought for the future, and I'm about 40% away from executing it, and that will be conventions. We want to have conventions in Las Vegas, conventions in Atlanta, and conventions in New York. And when I say a convention, where it'll be a 2-3 day convention where people just like yourself, Earl the Pearl, and other PDs and MDs, program and music directors, and record company executives, and record labels can all be in this one hotel and take up half the hotel, if not the whole hotel, and have seminars so people can learn things about the industry, have showcases where artists can perform their records, whether they're well-known, established artists or up-and-coming artists. Because at one time, Beyonce was a nobody. At one time, Justin Bieber was a nobody.
That's
at
right.
One time, P. Diddy was a nobody. So we want to have these conventions so these artists can perform and people can learn. And even with the conventions, there's a lot of money to be made and a lot of great times to be made. So that's the next step for Moses Media Incorporated and Don Cody Enterprises. We're going to jump in that pool with the conventions because Jack the Rapper, he's no longer with us, let him rest in peace.
We missed him.
And BRE, Black Radio Exclusive, was Sydney is a great friend of mine. I talk to him at least once or twice a month. Him and his wife, and also their kids, you know, Sydney Jr. and Eleanor and his wife Susan, and even Walt Love, some of the key
Walt
people in
Baby
the industry. When I was coming up, Walt Love and Doug Steele, I communicate with them on a regular, and that's the next phase for us, the convention.
Man, it's awesome. I am so ready for you to do that because I really cherish the time going to the BRE and Jack the Rapper. I've been to several of those in Los Angeles, Jack the Rapper in New Orleans. That's where I met Angela Winbush. It was an experience to go to those conventions. It's outstanding for the artists and for the radio announcers. It's a learning experience, a networking event you never forget. And I am so ready for you to do that.
I am too, and we have negotiated with some of the people, and I think the first one, even though I mentioned Las Vegas and Atlanta and New York, the first one that we're going to do, I got to target and focus in on Orlando, the city of Orlando, because I'm in Florida, and Orlando's only 2 hours away. The airlines easy accessible for a lot of people. The hotels get a good rate.
Mm-hmm.
So the very first one we're going to do will be in the city of Orlando, Florida. And it probably won't be till about 2018 before we launch it because, I don't do anything half. I do it all the way, very professional, from the look of everything, the paperwork, the execution, everything. So that will be the first one for us. And before we actually get ready to do it, I'll be communicating with you and your listeners again, Earl, so everyone in St. Louis will be aware of it and get some of my colleagues, my buddies, my homies from the great city of St. Louis, the only place I know where you can get a St. Paul sandwich. They don't know about St. Paul's here in Florida, and they don't know about tripe sandwiches here. So whenever I go to St. Louis, I always tell my relatives and my friends, no disrespect. I know you want to cook things for me, but I don't want to get your cooking. I want to get the food in St. Louis that I can't eat anywhere else.
Emo's Pizza. How about that?
Emos or Imos to some people, but they got 20 locations. The tripe sandwiches, the Snoop, and I gotta say hi to my friend Prince Carter. He had a place up there on Union and I-70 for the longest. He moved out there in Wellston off of Kinlan, but yeah, the barbecue in St. Louis. Come on. The Fox Theater, the steakhouse across from the Fox and Forest Park. St. Louis is always dear to me. And another thing, I just want to mention this before I go, because I know you got 50 zillion things to do. There's a lot of people that have been living in St. Louis all their life, but they never been up in the Gateway Arch. Take a ride up to the Gateway Arch celebrating 50 years. If you've been in St. Louis 30 years and you never been up in the Arch, you ain't a true St. Louisan.
Okay, well, the thing is, you're right about that, and you hit me right on the side of my head with that. When you get out there in that little bitty capsule, it's kind of tight, though, and I think...
That little egg like Mark and Mindy, man, come on. 5 people sit up and you all scrunched up and everything, and there's an elevator rocking side to side.
I know. And I went up there, and I was getting claustrophobic a little bit because it's so closed in. There's no windows, and it's tight. And so you get to the top, and then it's altogether different. It's just a beautiful view. And then I don't know.
After that long ride, you figure that's it. Then you got to walk like a hunchback from Notre Dame to get up the little steps, the little corner steps, the yellow lines on the side.
That's funny. And then I saw a news report. I want to tell you this. I got to tell you this. I saw a news report of a St. Louis reporter anchorman, Larry Connors. And I know you remember him.
Oh, yeah. Channel 2 and 4.
Right. He wound up standing on top of the Gateway Arch doing a report.
Oh, no, come on.
With the wind blowing.
Wow, he was on top of the arch?
He was on top of I saw the report. And if you got anybody listening, co-sign or disagree with me on that, I'm sure I'll be verified. He was standing up there doing a report at the top of the Gateway Arch.
Wow. That is crazy.
But man, you are awesome, man. You got to come back, and this has been a remarkable experience for me. Experience all of the knowledge and experience that you've had while being in St. Louis and being a top-notch radio announcer and first-class engineer, and now an extraordinary CEO of your own company with 18 employees. Man, my hat's off to you, and I got to clap. and
Thank
give
you,
you
thank you,
kudos,
man. I really
man.
appreciate it. But I learned everything right there in your city, my city, St. Louis,
Wow.
Missouri, working with a lot of professionals. And I do want to say a special thank you to Doug Eason. He hired me when I was 18 years old, straight out of high school. Lee Michaels and Gary Starr and John O'Day and Tony Gray and Jock Stein and Jim Gates and Bernie Hayes and Curtis Boogeyman Soul and Michael
Yes.
Tyrone Key, Sweet Charlie, let him rest in peace, Lou Father Times, his son,
JR.
Lou Times Jr., the real JR, Al McDonald, and then the people over at Majic, Chuck Atkins, Eric Magic Man, Michaels, Doc Winter, Cabby Cab, Tony Scott, Mark Clark, all of those people. I learned so much from all of them, and I incorporated everything I learned from them and more. If I didn't mention your name, it's not because I didn't forget about you. It's just so many. It's hard to say all of them, but I learned from all of them. Even back in the day, for the people that's my age or maybe a little bit older, Johnny Jones, Chuck Diamond, Chris Hall, Jay DeBard, Harry Lyles, Tony Gray. I mean, you can go Robert BQ, Ty Wansley, who went over to Chicago, Jay Jackson. I can go on and on.
Gary Starr, Billy Ryan.
Right, yeah. Those are my guys. And I was so young at that time. I was like a big sponge in a swimming pool. I absorbed all that water, and that's where I am today.
You're awesome, man, and I appreciate you. I'm going to chase you down, and when you get a break, please come back and visit with us again. Mr. Don Cody of Moses Media, a.k.a. Bruce Nichols. We love you, man.
Thank you, Earl. Great to be on your station, Magic 108 FM, a legend in St. Louis.